Hello, Hourlings. Welcome to After Hours with Jimmy Thistle. Tonight we have Henry Beercock, and yes, that is his name. And when he was in the midst of being a beer monster, I'm sure he loved that name. I'm sure he still loves his name as well. Great conversation with Henry tonight. We kind of discussed his, his early days of drinking and, into young adulthood, and just how they kind of, the scrapes and, I suppose, tribulation, trials and tribulations that came with that as well. And, he did get himself into some pretty nasty scrapes and scraps and stuff. So, yeah, and, with Hen, he kind of, he kind of became, I wouldn't say obsessed with alcohol, but he let it kind of control him, and he let it control his every kind of aspect of life, and that he did put on quite a bit of weight towards the end. And if you look at his Instagram, which I'll put in the show notes, it's amazing the transformation, to the pictures the videos that I've seen, to the person that I was having a conversation with last night. So yeah, it's remarkable. And I think I was thinking about this intro today, and the more and more I think about it, this isn't just for people in recovery or sober curious. I think this kind of podcast is for everyone. It's under alternative or alternate health on Spotify kind of categories. And that's a great category for it to be under. People are being a bit more conscious of their health. And I think, knocking alcohol out is the way forward. Now, I don't want to say to everyone you need to stop drinking, because I know a lot of people do it in moderation, and that's fine. But I want people to listen to this and learn what can happen and the dangers that are involved in drinking. This is a poison, and we need to make people aware of just how damaging it is. We want people to live a healthy life as well as live a healthy life. See what I did there? I quite like that. Live a healthy life. I'm sure someone said it before, but it came into my head subconsciously, and I heard it saying in my head. So I thought, oh, I like that. I haven't Googled it because I don't want to, because I'm sure it is out there somewhere, but I'm saying that I coined it. So live a healthy life. And you heard it here first from Jimmy Thistle. Anyway, I'm rambling a bit now. Let's get straight into it. Possibly some trigger warnings in it. I haven't listened back to it yet, but, always take care when listening to my episodes, because we do talk about, some pretty gruesome aspects of drinking and things that can happen and the kind of fallout from that. So take care when listening. And we're on episode 12, I believe. So yeah, enjoy. Bye. Right, Henry, is it Henry or Hen? Because I know you're.
You know what? Hen or Henry, really. Hen is, well, funny enough, Zen Hen, the name that I go by,
Yeah.
that was a name that I was given by my friends as a bit of a Mickey take, really, because it was before I went to Thailand to find myself.
Yeah.
They said I was going to go all Zen, so they called me Zen Hen. So I was like, right, I'm going to own that and take ownership of it, and that I have done.
Well, Zen Hen, welcome to After Hours with Jimmy Thistle, mate. It's a pleasure to have you on. And as I was been saying with people, it's kind of your kind of platform, your kind of chance to kind of tell your story, and what your kind of trials and tribulations with your kind of addiction, as it were. So tell us a little bit. Where are you in the country at the moment?
So I'm based in Hull in Yorkshire.
I know it. I know it very well. Well, I mean, very well. We'll get into that in a minute. Very well, or that was in my last kind of days of Gomorrah, pretty much
Okay.
before I got sober. But we can go into that. So yeah, just take us back to, like, how was your childhood and when did you have your first drink?
So my childhood, look, I'm a '90s kid, so I was
Yeah,
involved around.
how old are you? Sorry, how old are you?
So I'm
Just so
34.
right, okay, yeah, cool.
So basically, born 1990. So you can imagine growing up, it was very much the Brit pop culture, the lads, ladettes,
Yeah,
all of that sort of thing. Smoking in pubs, smoking inside, smoking in restaurants. So I was always around it, and I was from quite a big family, so we'd always have dinner parties and uncles, aunties, everyone sort of visiting. So I'd always saw it, and I would argue it was probably glamorized to a certain extent. You had your beer, your champagne, etc. So it was one of those, kind of, oh, I can't wait until I'm old enough where I can drink because it was made to look so cool on everything, TV shows, movies,
yeah.
or so. So I would say I was about when I had my proper first drink and first experience of getting drunk was about 12. And that was my one of my sisters had a party. And again, big family, you kind of left to your own devices, really. And me and my friend just grabbed some Alco Pops and we were down in those. And I think it was like a race to see when do we feel this drunk thing that everyone talks about. So we were sort of drink, and then, ooh, okay, I feel it now.
Mm.
But prior to that, I remember me and my sister, I must have been about 8 or 9. We found like a miniature bottle of Bailey's, and we snuck that, and we used to just swig that and go, "Oh, do you want to get drunk?" And then that was again because we'd seen parents do it. I don't know, you kids, you just pick up these things.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I'd say yeah, about 12 was when I first had my first experience of kind of getting drunk, but I wasn't paralytic or anything,
Hmm.
but I was definitely feeling tipsy.
Hmm. Yeah, it's interesting that because I was, we're exactly 10 years apart. I was born in 1980. So it's interesting that, you're talking about the lad and ladette culture and Britpop and all that when, that was my kind of starting to drink era, but you would have been like, like going four, five, six, seven, eight, but you're still being kind of associated with that culture, which is,
Oh,
it's
definitely.
that whole culture kind of did normalize drinking to a kind of crazy, incredible kind of sense, and it was just everywhere. And I think it still is to a point. And I was listening to Radio One, and I never listen to Radio One anymore. I'm too old for that. And but like I was listening to it Saturday morning and I don't even know who the DJs were that were on. And I think there's a guy and a girl, and they were talking about how they'd been out the night before, they'd been at some party, and they were absolutely hanging. This was like 10, 11 o'clock on a Saturday morning. And do you know what I mean? Like, kids are listening to that. And that just really it just really irked me because it was like, you're just kind of totally normalizing that kind of behavior to children, essentially,
Yeah.
because that's the kind of listening point to Radio One. But yeah, so then how did that kind of develop through your kind of your teen years and how was school and you know
So yeah, I would say it developed. I was because I had older siblings. I was known as the guy who could get the booze, basically. So
right, yeah,
if it'd be any house parties or if we were in the village and we wanted to go to the park and get a big bottle of cider, I would get my brother to go down to the shop for me and go and get it. So I was kind of because I had older siblings and because I had drank before, I felt like I was above everyone in that sense. Like, let me see what I can do. And then
yeah,
I'd rock up to the parties with a crate. And my parents, admittedly, they were quite willing as well. Because again, as long as they knew I was somewhere safe in a house, they weren't too bothered. But they weren't obviously providing me with cider on a park bench.
hmm hmm
But I would say, memories wise, sort of anywhere between sort of 14 to 16. I think I was about 14 when I went on a school trip.
hmm
We went skiing in Italy, and a friend of mine, a bit taller, maybe I don't know, he could pass for about 16, but he was only 14 as well. And we were meant to be going bowling, and basically we had about a 3 hour window. We just finished skiing, and we had a 3 hour window where we weren't doing anything. So we said, "Oh, let's see if you can get served."
yeah,
So anyway, he got a pack of Stellas or something. We were in this car park. and we were down in these beers because we didn't have long again, and we were sort of looking for that drunk feeling. So we started feeling a little bit tipsy, but I don't know what we were expecting because we were meant to be going bowling afterwards. So we went to the shop and we bought a load of Tic Tacs. We sprayed ourselves. I literally sprayed deodorant on my face
Yeah,
and
yeah.
crunching these Tic Tacs just so they couldn't smell it on us. And we thought we'd done it. As we're walking down the stairs, this guy rocks up with a bottle of vodka and he goes, "Way!" And we're like, yes.
And that was like one of your peers, yeah, just one your age, yeah, yeah.
It's just
Wow,
our age. And he
wow,
just so he rocks up and we're just swigging it,
yeah.
literally swigging away. No, we didn't know what alcohol poisoning was. We didn't have a clue. So we were just going at it. And then yeah, I was in a bad way. The teachers all found out. The doctor had to come and get me. I remember being walked like I had to walk it off over someone's shoulder. I remember drinking from this natural well. It was a really weird experience. Funnily enough, though, the teachers that were meant to be supervising me, it never quite made it back to the headmaster at the school because obviously I was under their watch. So I was being told, I was the worst thing that could happen. I'll never be able to go on any school trips, but it was kind of brushed under the carpet because they were at fault. I was a kid.
Yeah. And
So
secretly, I'm not sure about it. They were probably quite younger than like say the headmaster, and they were probably maybe having a little bit of a party themselves once the kids were all, in
uh,
bed tucked up and all that. So it's like let's not say another word about this type thing,
definitely. And I
Yeah.
never quite know how I got away with it. I don't know if something was said to my dad or whatever, but it
Mm.
all just seemed to get brushed under the carpet. So that was then. And then fast forward about a couple more years, I remember it was about someone's 16th birthday party and they had a bowl of alcohol-free punch, just, punch.
Yeah.
Maybe it had a little bit of something in it, but very minuscule.
Yeah.
And my dad used to have his own distillery, like he'd make his homemade vodka with loads of different flavors. He'd do all sorts.
Mm.
And so that was kind of his thing. And we'd always try it every time we'd go around. The older we got, we would try more, but
Yeah.
there will always be some sort of flavored vodka. And so anyway, he wouldn't notice if I stole a couple. So I'm rocking up to this party with this punch, and I've got these strawberry vodkas, glug, 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 glug. Basically, I don't want to glorify it or anything, but I spiked the party.
Yeah. Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
at the time, everyone was like, yes, legend, whatever.
Well,
But
yeah, yeah. This is what we did when we were young. It's not, do you know what I mean? This was like you were the legend, and that's the
yeah,
thing. And like, I'm sure your dad's vodka, flavored or not, was probably not your usual 37.5% or
well,
40%.
it
I'm
wasn't
sure.
distilled.
Yeah,
I mean, it was, you get, I don't know, smell off and stuff. It's like triple distilled, whatever. This was straight out the bat,
yeah.
so it's hard to really say what proof
Of
it was.
course, you'd have to put it through some kind of science and all that, and then
Yeah,
so
yeah.
it's heavy. It's heavy, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, hey, look, we had a good time, but I can't imagine looking back now what the parents, how they didn't smell it on our breaths or see all these kids getting a bit looser. I don't know.
Yeah. And
So
so
that
what, sorry, what age were you around this?
I was about 16.
So this is where it's kind of the grey area because parents, especially back in the day, and I don't really know what it's like because as I say, I'm a stepfather to 14, 12, and an 8-year-old. So they're gonna be getting to that point soon. And it's like, at what point do you kind of, at 16, 17, you're almost at that 18 age. So it's kind of like, well, if they're not out completely destroying bus shelters and robbing and doing that kind of stuff, it's normalized, isn't it? Again, it's this really gray area, and it's like I don't know what I'm going to be like when the little ones start to kind of do that. Obviously, we want them to do it safely rather than down the park or whatever. So at least they probably knew you were in the house, you weren't going completely crazy, no one was being sick, so they probably knew. You know what I mean? But just we're like,
Yeah, I think
let's
so, and
go
I
with
think
it.
it's look, let him have a good time. I don't know,
Yeah.
I guess, but so there was that, and then I mean that was kind of my introductory to it, and then it was of a legal age, and then that
Yeah.
that was the rest is history really with that sort of thing. I mean, because again, once you're allowed, that's it. The floodgates are open, and you do what you want.
Do what you want. You can walk into a pub, and I think the first time we went into the pubs legally, and I was the youngest of my lot, although I looked the oldest, so I would be going into the shop when we were underage and getting us bottles of Mary down and that. But when we could legally go into the pub. We'd been drinking in the pub for about 2 years, and I think we were having like 18th birthday parties in this pub, and it was just like, the landlord was just like, yeah, whatever. Do you know what I mean? He obviously knew, but now we were legal, so it wasn't like he could kick us out for stuff that we'd done 2 years ago.
Mm.
So yeah, it was just that's the way it was. And yeah, as you say, that whole thing where you almost want to get ID'd in shops so that you can go, yeah, I've got my provisional or whatever it is, and you can show that off, and you're fine. But so what did you do after school? Did what was like, did you go into further education or?
So after school, I went to sixth form,
Mhm.
so like college,
Yeah, yeah,
basically,
yeah.
and I did a year then. I was working. I had like a Saturday job at my family's business,
Hmm.
which is in real estate, like estate agency.
Cool.
So I was doing that on a Saturday, and so when I did a year at college, I failed a few classes just
Hmm.
because I'll be honest, I found it quite hard, and the no excuses. I just didn't put that much effort in, to tell you the
Hmm.
truth, and because they weren't really lessons I was that passionate about, because I really never quite knew what I wanted my path to be.
Hmm.
I definitely didn't think it would be in the family business. But then when that fell through, I remember my dad came in the meeting with me and he just said, are you going to resit the year? And I was like, no. He went, well, he ain't got a job here. He made that very clear. So that was fine, which I wouldn't be expected to have it on a plate anyway. And that's
Hmm.
the kind of person he is, which I'm grateful for. So I was doing all sorts. I was doing door knocking for charities, 100% commission only, which was
Yeah, it's tough.
mind-numbingly, well. It was so hard because it was 100% commission. So I was out 8 o'clock in the morning till 11 o'clock at night, and I signed up one person and I got a fiver. And I didn't even get that fiver because you have to be at the company for a certain amount of time to get your money. Anyway, I did it for 2 days and I realized this is an absolute scam.
Yeah.
So then I just did some labor work, and then luckily an opportunity did come up at the family business. So I took that, and 17 years later, there I was. So
Yeah.
I was there from the age of 16, working on a weekend, but I started working there like full time at 18,
Hmm.
and I left that business in 2023. So when
Right.
so a few years ago.
And so that's quite interesting with it being in the family business. So how did your drinking kind of escalate? And when did you know it was starting to become a problem? And did that affect your work life?
Yeah, I mean, when I was younger, before I was given many responsibilities within the business,
Mm.
yeah, I mean, I remember my boss, because there was people obviously below, let's say my dad and the other family members, so I had my own boss, and I remember coming in from a night out, maybe 3 o'clock in the morning. All my friends stayed over at my house. I had my own place.
Hmm.
And I remember the door was wide open, her screaming, saying, "Get up, you're late." And all of us were just like, the place was a mess. So I remember that happening. There was a few times I would rock up, still drunk from the night before. And
Yeah.
this is, talking 18 till 20. I would like to think at the time I should have known better, and I thought, I respected the business and stuff, but I guess I was just a kid. I wasn't,
Yeah.
I wasn't being entitled to the point like, oh, it's family business, I don't care. I was just doing what all my other mates were doing as well at their
Yeah.
job.
And that's what it sounds like. It sounds like you've not, you know, and I suppose you might have gone the other way and like been actually more well behaved because it was the family business, but no, you were actually just doing what a normal 20-year-old would do, go out on a
Yeah,
night out, get completely shit faced, and then go into work late or whatever. So it's kind of like you're almost like, don't even
yeah.
think of this as a family business.
Because I didn't go to university, all my
Mm,
friends did. So I was the only one who sort of stayed here. So what would happen is when they came back, I would kind of have to live those uni days with them.
yeah,
So
yeah.
I would end up going out to go visit their universities, or when they're back for a few weeks or months, I would be going out Monday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. I mean, how I afforded it, I do not know. Obviously,
Mm.
things were a bit cheaper back then. But I was really, my main drinking would happen. Yeah, some weeks it would be Monday night, that's student night. Thursday night, that's another student night. Friday would be at the pub after work. So I was basically I was getting drunk pretty much 60% of the time, really.
Mm.
And then it did seem to sort of die down a little bit where it would be just down to Fridays and Saturdays. The
Mm.
after work Friday on at the pub, that was kind of like the ritual that was like,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, everyone, because I lived near the pub as well. So I would drive by it, see how busy it was. I sort of monitor that and go, right, let me drop the car off and I'm going.
Yeah, yeah. Well, that was it. I mean, it's Friday night, isn't it? And I mean, a lot of times, especially when I lived over here before, I would, we'd go straight from work, because I worked in a bank, so we were all suited and booted anyway, ready for a night out. And we would just
Mm.
go straight from work. And the plan would be to get a bit of food, but most times, 9 times out of
Eating's
10,
cheating, isn't it?
eating's cheating. So we just go out and just get ourselves into some right old states. But I was in my 20s, so I could kind of handle it a bit. But I
Mm.
guess I did start realizing I kind of started blacking out maybe about my mid to late 20s, and that was like I'd wake up and I'd be like, well, what happened the night before? And a few people would maybe fill me in, but they'd be like, oh, you were an absolute just off your head last night, and I would just kind of laugh it off. But so, what did you kind of, was there any kind of pinnacle point where you thought, "Ah, do you know what, this is getting on top of me," or was it
Yeah,
only
yeah. I mean, there
latterly?
would there would be certain fights you would get in. I was never an aggressor.
Hmm.
I was
Hmm.
always sort of kind of wrong place, wrong time, or I would read the situation wrong. I would
Yeah.
think so when I was, going back to when I was 16, we were in Marbella and me, my brothers, my sisters, it was the last night. So last night of a holiday. I don't know why. It was always like the last hurrah, like let's get really drunk. So we're super hungover on the plane on the way home. I don't get why people do it, but it's just a thing.
Hmm.
Anyway, so I remember walking back along the beach and I saw this guy in like a fedora hat. In my head, I thought I was like, "Hey, Justin Timberlake, hey, how's it going?" I thought I was being nice.
Yeah.
Anyway, so then little do I know, he's planning on shanking me supposedly. And my
Oh.
brother said, this guy was like, "Yeah, we're gonna stab him," sort of thing. And my brother overheard it. So my brother and this other guy got involved, got in a massive scrap. My brother grabbed me, threw me into a bush to avoid me getting stabbed. These guys, luckily, don't stab my brother or anything. So that was kind of the first time. And I remember getting so drunk and I was so irate with my brother. I was like, "You don't let me do anything. How
Yeah.
could you?" And he's like, "I just saved your fucking life. Like, what?" So that was again about 16. That was summer of 16, just turning 17.
Uh-huh.
And then yeah, I think I was about 19 in Cancun. And so me and my mate, we decided to go out there because I think the drinking age is like 18 in Cancun
Hmm.
in
Hmm.
Mexico. So we went in spring break because again, you see it all in the movies. Woo,
Yeah.
spring break.
Oh, yeah,
A
yeah.
couple of
Carnage.
single lads from England. We thought, I'll be honest, we went out there thinking they were going to be all the girls would be all over us. We were just going to have the time of our
Yeah,
lives.
you've got the kind of interesting English accent. The women are going to be putty in your
Yeah,
hat.
you think
Yeah.
that. You think that. Honestly, we couldn't even pull our bed sheets. It was yeah, it was pretty bad. So whilst we were out there, we were on a budget. We were skint, so we managed
Hmm.
to scrape up for this holiday, and then we kept because of the time difference. We kept sleeping in. Like we paid all this money for this club night. We
Hmm.
ended up missing it anyway. This one night we got so drunk because we had no money, so we were minesweeping. And
Mm. Oh Christ, yeah, yeah. And I mean,
so
in a place like Cancun, yeah, you don't know what you're getting
exactly, I mean, it
minesweeping.
was that place was dodgy. The things I saw
Yeah.
there were scary, really. So
And
yeah,
just
doing that.
just for the listeners who might not know what minesweeping is, you tell
So
them what
basically, yeah, you
minesweeping
just
is.
find a load of random drinks that could be half drunk, they could be full, they could still have a straw in, still have the ice. find them on a random table when no one's looking. They've either still drinking them or
Yeah.
they've left them and moved on, and you just drink them.
You
You
just
just
drink
drink them,
them.
and it's Russian roulette, really.
Yeah, yeah. It's pretty grim as well. I mean, I've done it in the past, and it's like, as you say, when you're a bit skint or whatever, and it's just, yeah, it's a good way of getting drunk without actually paying for it.
I mean,
So
God knows
yeah.
what they're putting in it. So I got so drunk then. My mate said I was kind of walking around a bit like a gorilla. My knuckles were like scraping the floor. I was falling all over. And this is, again, I was kind of blacked out, but I remember this because it was
Hmm.
such a defining moment. I tripped over on a curb and I fell onto the road and I literally felt the head on the road. I saw a bus stop there. I saw the headlights and literally stopped just before it ran over my head. I mean,
Christ.
this we're talking. My mate was like, "I won't lie, I thought you were dead."
Yeah.
So that was when I was 19, and that still didn't stop me. I continued. So
Because
blacking out
you
was
start to think you're invincible, you know what I mean, with these little close scrapes, and you're like, nothing's damaged me yet, so I'll just keep going. And the thing is, when you are 20, going on, you do think you're invincible down at that age, and
yeah.
it's, life is easy because things don't seem to happen to us, or if we get in scrapes, it's like we easily get sorted out of it and all that. Yeah,
Mm.
so
I mean, that
um
was so, as I said, that was when I was like 19. And then it would just be not knowing how I got home. It would be just, I'd wake up and I remember like, I kind of like, I felt like I dislocated my shoulder. I was like, I remember calling my mate. I was like, do you not remember? You had someone
mm,
in, you had someone in your shoulders. You fell down the stairs. You did this. And unfortunately, with when you look at alcohol and the injuries that you can have falling downstairs, unfortunately, I did lose. I lost a friend from that exact accident.
mhm.
He again, we don't know exactly sort of how it happened, but once you get the report through, etc., he was drunk and fell downstairs and hit his head,
Wow.
and that was it. So, and that was a few years ago, and I do think that was a bit of an eye opener because a lot
Yeah.
of it made a lot of people stand there and think and go, okay, this is what can happen. Like we are getting a bit silly now, and not everyone's sort of taking it and thought, okay, maybe we need to do better. Some people, as you can imagine, probably went a little bit the other way.
Hmm.
However, I think seeing that, and I want to say you grow up, but I know a lot of people older than me that still haven't grown out of it. But I just think there was just too many things, and I was unhappy, as I said, at work because I never quite felt I fell into it really, didn't I? From what
Mm.
I've obviously explained, and I never quite felt I was on the right path. So I was wishing the week away, boozing on the weekend, not quite sort of taking it maybe as seriously as I should, especially at the beginning. But then I built myself up. I was a director. I got
Yeah.
myself all the way to the top. And I just didn't like the view once I was there.
Mm.
And life's for living. And I thought I've got one opportunity at this life, and I don't want to miss it.
It's so interesting, and then going back, I'm so sorry to hear about your friend that
Thank you.
passed away. But I was going to say actually, were you kind of the standout one that would be doing silly things? But it sounds like a lot of your mates were doing silly,
No,
but you were
I would
probably the
say
worst.
I was a lot of the time. I was kind of like not the I was the I don't know the butt of the joke a lot of the time. I would laugh at myself. I would do stupid things and not really
Yeah,
care about the repercussions.
yeah,
And I would just do it to make people laugh because I felt like that's what they expected of me. So I'd
yeah.
just be a joker. And I used to call myself the grenade because I would just go into a social situation, blow up, do something daft. It might be dancing, it might just be something ridiculous.
Hmm.
And my mates would come and pick up the pieces. And when I say pieces, it'd be they would come and either get all the girls or whatever, and I'm just left here scrambling away, sort of trying to
Yeah,
retreat back in the corner and just be like, okay, I've done my thing now, bye.
yeah.
And I never really saw that as a problem until I got sober, really.
It's interesting because I would be quite similar to that. I mean, I think I drank when I was started drinking when I was younger, probably for shyness. But then who isn't shy, in their kind of teen years
Yeah,
and all
yeah.
that, got a bit of anxiety. But once I'd kind of established myself as a drinker, as it were, and I was a fun, chatty guy for the most part. But then when I got the booze in it, it would be like something completely different because, like you, I'd be doing these outlandish, stupid things, and I don't know how I didn't do any more like long lasting injuries to myself. Like I was remembering the other day, we were at a stag do up in Perthshire for one of my best mates, and I remember like we should have been in bed because we were getting up to do like whitewater rafting and quad biking the next day. But I got like a few of us, and I was the instigator. We were up on top of this hotel roof at like 6 in the morning. God knows what we were doing up there, but it was like I think in my head it was like, oh, we can watch the sunrise from on top of the hotel. And we worked out a way we could get up this fire escape. And do you know what I mean? But it was just ridiculous. And it was lucky we didn't even get chucked out of the hotel because I was living in Cambridge at the time and I'd driven all the way up to Perthshire. So it was in the middle of nowhere. And if we'd been kicked out of this hotel because of something I'd done, like my mate whose stag it was would never have forgiven me. And I think there was like 20 of us, so we would have all just been kicked out in our arses. But it didn't happen. But it's like how that didn't
You
happen,
don't
I
even
have
think of the
no idea.
consequences, do
Not
you?
at
I
all,
mean,
not at all.
you
And then
couldn't.
the next day it was just a laugh. I think he was pretty pissed off, but because there was no longer lasting effects on
Well,
it.
you say the next day, a few hours
Well, a
later,
few hours later, yeah, yeah,
basically.
yeah, yeah. And then we got up, we went whitewater rafting and all that, and we were all hanging. But it was like,
But
yeah,
how good is whitewater rafting when you were hungover, though? I bet everyone's like, "Oh my God, I feel amazing." Because
yeah.
I
I mean, there was a few guys that actually they pulled out of it and they were sick, especially when he was doing the kind of the tutorial at the beginning,
yeah.
and he was saying make sure you hold your hand on the T bar all the time because I've seen guys' eyes pop out and all that. There was one guy that was just like, "This isn't for me." Got up, he like threw up at the side of the river, and then that was him done. And then we got to the end, and I remember they were all going, "Oh, I'm so thirsty. I'm so thirsty. I've got," we call it in Scotland, the druth, the dry mouth. And I was like, guys, like, look around you. We're in the middle of Scotland. We're in a river. Like, just drink. It's like, and actually,
Probably the
probably
best
looking,
water you'll ever have.
probably, but actually thinking back recently, it was probably like it could have been dead animals up the river, or they could have been polluting it from. But it was fine. They were like, "Oh my God!" They were like, so yeah, it was. But do you know what? Like as you say, I wasn't thinking the consequences at the time. Not for me, not for any of the guys around us. And what if one of them had taken the wrong step? We were all pissed and doing other stuff. What if he just stepped off and then fallen? Do you know what I mean? And it's like,
I
I don't
think
even want to
binge
think about
culture
it.
is just it's so glorified, isn't it? So you
Yeah.
just think, and you're drinking for that exact reason. I remember saying like, you know, parties or anything like when it was free booze, and let's say someone made a bit of an idiot of themselves, I'm
Mm,
like, don't provide booze. If you don't want someone to sort of take advantage of that and get stupid, then you're not providing these drinks so people get more sober.
mhm.
You should expect the consequences in a way,
Yeah.
but it's that self-control that people should have, and something personally I didn't.
Yeah.
And that social anxiety. And again, I've always got to be mindful of that word, but I would drink because I didn't really knew where I fit in. I was like, I need to have a certain amount so I can do my stupid dancing, so I can get in, whatever, so I can be that sort of party Henry as opposed to just waiting to get drunk. Like, I don't know,
Yeah.
I'll be a completely different person.
Yeah. And like going up to the bar, oh, it's my round, right? I'll go up and like at the beginning when you're not in that, like fun time Jimmy I'd hopefully get into at some point. So I'd go up and I'd be getting the round in, but I'd be doing shots at the bar that no one else would be doing. So weirdly, by the end of the night, I was way more pissed than everyone else because how did that happen? So they all thought that I couldn't handle my drink, but it was actually because I drank like twice as much as them, because I
Or
wanted
just
to
to be
get to
like
that
doubles.
level quicker and then to try and sustain that the rest of the
Yeah.
night. But yeah.
It is strange, but we didn't know any different, and I
No,
think
no.
that's the thing now. And I notice it more when I watch TV shows and when I watch movies now. Just in general, like honestly, I just see it. And I don't know if you watched the Gavin and Stacey Christmas special,
I
but
did,
and
yeah, yeah.
I was like they were all like dancing around. They had a bar in the lounge, and then
Yeah.
they didn't wake up in the morning because they drank too much. I'm like, are people still celebrating this?
See
I
that
found
that to me, I don't know. You maybe thought the same as me because I loved Gavin and Stacey, all the episodes going up. But I was a drinker then, do you know what I mean? And even when the last Christmas special was on, I was still a drinker then. So to watch this one as a sober in recovery, that scene that you're talking about, it really made me cringe a bit. And I was like,
Thank
is this
you.
still going on? And I don't know whether Gavin and Stacey is now outdated or and they're still trying to hark back to like what it was. But that scene really, really did make me cringe. And I was like, this is like to look at what's his name, like Larry Lamb and the one that plays the mum as well. I just thought you guys are in like your kind of mid to late 70s now, I think they are as actors and actors. But it was like, why? I know it's in the writing and, Corden and all that have written it, but yeah, it really made me cringe that scene. And I'm sure a lot of people found it funny. I just didn't. That was the
No,
one bit.
and I don't. I struggle. I struggle
Yeah.
with a lot. I say struggle. I mean, I try not to overthink it, but I see TV shows and it'll be like, right, celebration. Let's go to the pub, or like, I don't know. A cop show. They always afterwards, everyone, if they solve a crime, they go to the nearest bar and they'll have drinks and like drinks
Yeah.
on me, the
Yeah.
sergeant, or whatever it might be. And
I
I'm
mean, look
just,
at look at all the soaps. You got.
yeah,
I mean, I don't watch them, but my mum and dad like it's on all the time. I think they watch the old ones and like catch up TV and all that. I think they've started. I think they watch ITV2, and it's like Coronation Street in Emmerdale like 20 years ago. So I'm like, you guys not seen this one? You know what I mean? But if you look at all the soaps, they're like Emmerdale, it's a pub that's the village surrounds. Coronation Street, there's a pub, and that's the main kind
it's
of
the
pub.
heart, isn't it?
And EastEnders, it's
Yeah,
the heart of the show, is where everyone meets. And I'm
mm,
not saying that everyone that's in there is a raging alcoholic. And I know that they had a story that was a long, slow burner with Coronation Street, and it was really it was well done from what I've heard on a person with alcoholism, because they didn't just make it like, oh, this person drinks loads and then boom. They kind of built it up over a
yeah.
long period of time. But yeah, all these soaps and shows, they're all surrounded by, they're all based around a pub. And I'm not saying that needs to change, but like we need to think of new ideas, because
Yeah,
this
I
is
mean,
not the 60s and 70s and 80s anymore.
I think
Um,
people, when, especially with like dry Jan and stuff, what they'll do is they'll just not go out, So, and something
mm,
I've been trying to promote locally in my area is you
yeah.
can still go out. You can still visit, these places, visit a restaurant, visit a bar, just have an alcohol-free option and, take your mates and go to a quiz night or whatever it might be. But I think people are just like, well, if I'm not drinking, what's the point? Like, I mean, I overheard my stepmom. I mean, hopefully she don't listen to this, but I overheard her. She said, "Oh well, Thingy and Thingy couldn't make. Said they were going to come, but they were going to drive. So I told, well, don't bother. Just come to the next one. That was,
Yeah.
it's a bit like if you're not going to come and drink, I don't want to see you." And I
Yeah.
thought that was really telling. I was like, that's such a shame. But I've said that. I've said it to my mate. I'm like, what's the point of you coming? Like,
Yeah.
if you're going to drive, like, we're all going to be drinking. Like, don't be boring.
Because
You
yeah,
do.
it's that boring thing, and it's like you're not going to have fun. How do you know I'm not going to have fun?
Well, it's more I'm not going to have fun knowing that you're not drinking. It's
Yeah.
more like I'm worried that we're not going to be on the same wavelength
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
whatever,
Yeah.
and you're going to make me feel a bit anxious. So therefore, come with me and
Yeah.
let me make you drunk so we can all have a good time.
Well, what it is it's like I want to be a bit silly and do stupid things, but I feel like if you're not drinking, you're going to be judging me and you're going to have your sensible head on. So I'm not allowed to do. You're going to be, and I feel like you're going to ruin my night because I'm going to be conscious that you're watching me to do
Yes,
anything silly
yeah, I think,
things. Yeah.
and I do think that's when I'm sure you've realized when you've gone sober is that's why you lose people, you lose friends because you are that guy, or to them, you're that guy who stood there judging them when they get a bit more leery or a bit more silly, and you can pick. I always say I can pick my moments. I can come there, show my face, whatever, but I'm not going to be there for longevity. I don't think I can because the more drunk people get, the
Yeah.
more annoying they get.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, okay, I'll do my time. I'll have a nice conversation with you.
Yeah.
I will remember this. You won't. And I'm
Yeah.
going to go, no problem.
Yeah.
But then, whereas I think sometimes people are like, well, don't bother coming then or whatever. And I think it's a bit different now, but I just don't tend to get invited to stuff.
And that's, do you know what? Like that's fine with me because I'm like we went to a friend's kind of party on Saturday night, and it was good, and the kids were there, and it was like a Manx music session, so there was lots of our friends playing instruments and all that, and it was all the Celtic Manx music. So it was a really really good night. But again, people were drinking, and I think I had one pint of zero, and it's like. And actually, that night was completely fine, but we didn't stay out late anyway. But like other nights, I'm kind of, and I don't want to talk about any of my friends, but in previous, like when I've gone out and you're chatting to someone, and it's like they're not really listening to you. They're kind of waiting for you to stop talking, and then they can then tell you the same thing that they told you three times already. Do you know what I mean? And it's that whole thing. And I just want to be in a place where, like, we've got a coffee shop here that's open till about 10 o'clock, and I think there needs to be loads more of them because I don't want to go home straight away after work. Sometimes I want to meet friends for coffee. I don't want to go to a bar because if you go into a bar, I don't want to be shouting across the table at people. Whereas, like, the weird thing is, we've been to a bar, me and some of my sober friends, and we've been in this bar, and it's been quite late on, maybe 8, 9 o'clock, and we've been like bellowing at each other across the table, like straining our vocal cords. Then we thought, right, we'll just go down to Windsor. So we went down to Windsor, and it's the same time of night, just a couple of doors down, but there's no alcohol in this place. There's still music on, you know what I mean? There's still all that, but nobody's shouting. Nobody's kind of raising their voice. They're all just having a nice, quiet conversation. But like because there's alcohol involved, people seem to think they need to shout. And if that table's kind of shouting, that table's shouting, then do you know what I mean? And I get that that's a fun night
I
out.
think the music as well with these bars to create the atmosphere because
Yeah,
they have to orchestrate an atmosphere really. They have to sort of create it out of something so that it's like extra music, louder music, darker
yeah,
lights, etc. We need to make it feel like a party and then more drunk and so on. And I think more sober spaces is definitely a thing that I'd be rooting for. And
absolutely.
it's again, I just find with talk about going for coffees or like with your friend, like it's I'm in this sort of limbo period where I'm meeting more sober people, but
Hmm.
then my going by what you were saying about when people are talking to you and the kind of you do notice you can't help but feel boring, even though you're not being boring. In their head, they're looking at you thinking, yeah, yeah, yeah. When are you going to finish talking? Because you're just talking fact. You're having a normal conversation,
Yeah,
and they're
yeah, yeah,
like,
yeah,
yep,
yeah.
yep, yep, yep. When can I start spitting and like and drooling and whatever and all that? And I don't know about you, but I feel people when they see you as well, they have to justify their position on drinking. They have to justify their relationship with booze. Like, yeah, I don't drink much. Yeah, like,
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
oh, I need to take a leaf out of your book. I'm like, do it then.
Yeah, yeah. They do, and they do. I know, and it's like, but I'm not judging you, or I'm trying not to. Do you know what I mean? You're not absolutely falling over the place. If you are, then I'll maybe judge you. But if you're just having a couple of quiet drinks, I really don't care how many you're having
Yeah,
or what you're doing. And but it's a reflection on their maybe not guilt or whatever, but
insecurities. I
it's
think.
insecurities. I think because I think a lot of people have got so used to using alcohol when they go out that it's become that kind of crutch for them because they don't know how to go out and act without the kind of booze crutch. And I say to them, just go out for a night out. Do you know what I mean? You don't have to drink and see how it is from like my side of the kind of fence. Because then you might be like, and you can't do it just once because it does take a while. It's taken me, a number of years to get to kind of comfortable position. And even now, sometimes I still do get a bit, anxiety driven when I'm out
Yeah.
and there's other people drinking all around me. Good thing is, my partner, my fiance, she doesn't really drink at all. She kind of joined I've got like a little group sober season, so it's like 3 months instead of the dry January, and we do like autumn,
Oh,
winter,
nice.
spring. So it's kind of a reset every time, and it's like 90 days. But a lot of people that have been doing it, it's been going over a year now. A lot of people have been kind of they've done a year now, but some people have kind of dropped in and out, and I get that. And so Jen kind of did the autumn one, and then she knew she was going over to Blackpool for a night out, and so she had a few drinks then. Then she had a kind of Christmas do with her girlfriends, Yeah, she had a few that night. And then I think since then she's only had one drink at New Year. So she's not said she's quit, and I don't think she has, but she just doesn't. She never really used to drink anyway. But
Yeah.
she's just kind of, not really bothering with it, which is great. But I've never said to her like you need to kind of stop this because it was never an issue. She was never
I
coming
think
in
it's
steaming.
same with
So
my wife, really, because I think in a way they're seeing, they're seeing how you can have a good time without it, and
yeah, yeah.
and it's no longer a crutch for you. So it's like I think to have a supportive partner is so helpful. I mean, I'm so thankful when I decided to go sober, which it wasn't like an overnight thing. It was just gradual. This is making me feel good. I'll carry on, carry on. And my
Yeah.
wife, she was still having the odd drink, and then I think she probably had three periods of last year where she maybe it was a work night out or something where she had a few drinks, but not to the point of getting really drunk.
Hmm.
And then now she just says, I just don't drink. She doesn't brand herself as sober. She just says, I just don't drink.
Yeah.
So she's
Yeah.
now joining me. I'm running like sober events now, and she helps me with those as well. So which
Yeah.
she wouldn't have if she wasn't, I wouldn't say she wouldn't have, but she wouldn't want to necessarily be promoting it, helping it if it'd be a bit hypocritical in a way. So now she's very
Well,
much in that
it's
camp.
I there was someone on Sober Dave, I think it was a few months back, and she had a wine company, like so that she was doing all these events with wine tasting and all that. And obviously she'd got into a bit of bother through the years. So she eventually, when she got sober, she felt I've got to sell this company. I can no longer be going to these events and kind of trying to push this, in a sales sense, like this product onto people, telling them how good it is when I actually really have a problem with it now.
Yeah, yeah.
So it's kind of the kind of opposite of that. So you were saying there. So how did you? What was the crux, and why did you get sober? And what you said it just wasn't like a kind of straight
So
stop. It was.
Um, so basically, what happened was when I realized, I ballooned in weight. So I got myself.
I've seen your pictures on Instagram, and I'll put your your Instagram handle in the show notes. And I've been looking at the pictures, man, and to look at you now, I
Yeah.
mean, what a transformation. Yeah.
Oh, thanks, man. Yeah, it was again, it wasn't necessarily overnight, but I'd always struggled with my weight. So
Mm,
basically, and I never really put it down to alcohol. I know it was wasted calories. People say that and whatever, but I just thought it was me being lazy and whatever. But then when I started to really sort of basically having the spot of my wife and talking things through, etc., that really helped because basically it was trying to figure out what's been the main sort of constant, and
mhm.
alcohol was it. And once I started sort of looking at it, how I used to wish the week away to live for the weekend, etc. So my older brother, who I worked with, he had gone sober,
Mhm.
and he never tried to push it on me or anything. But you can't help but see the benefits, and I was like,
Yeah.
okay. And so when I went away, so I left work, and everyone was like, "What you're gonna leave this cushy job? Like you're a director, like you got a nice car, you got this, you got that." And I was like, "It just doesn't serve me anymore." And they're like, "Well, what are you gonna do?" I
Yeah.
went, "Don't know. I'll figure it out." So luckily I had some money saved. So I just thought because if I stay in the hope that I find another career to go to, I'd end up staying there forever because I would know money wouldn't be. I just didn't know what I wanted to do. So
Yeah.
basically, I decided to take myself off and go to a fitness retreat in Thailand.
Mhm.
So I did that, and again that helped.
Was this on your own or with the
On
wife?
my
Or
own, on
you're
my
on
own,
your own?
yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I
Cool.
went.
Cool.
So it was 4 weeks. This retreat,
Yeah.
and it was very much. And I turn up thinking it was going to be super strict, and there was someone smoking a cigarette, drinking a beer on the balcony. I'm like, whoa, what's going on here? And they were like, well, we're not in a prison.
Yeah.
You can do what you like. And I was
Yeah.
like, okay. But then what that taught me was restraint and
Yeah.
control because I thought I can go out and get drunk if I want to, and no one's going to tell me off.
Yeah.
But I need to do this for myself.
Yeah.
So, and also I knew if I wanted to take this seriously and lose the weight and come back and show people this is why I did this to work on myself, then, I didn't want to fall short at the first hurdle. So I didn't booze all that time.
Mhm.
And I started feeling great. I noticed the weight dropping off. And in 4 weeks I lost 21 pounds, which was
Wow.
a start.
Yeah.
So it's now seven stone in total from
Jesus.
when. I guess that's, I don't know the exact amount, because I there's when you get big,
Yeah.
it takes you a while to build up the courage to step on the scales.
Uh,
So there was probably a period, I probably was more, but I hadn't bothered stepping on the scales at that point.
uh
So booze for me was the issue. It was my self-esteem. It was being lethargic. It wasn't, it was the hangovers. It was the anxiety. It was the bad decisions on food. It was the lack of sleep. It was everything.
Yeah.
So when I took that out and I felt clarity, I felt like I wanted to go to the gym. I felt like I could do anything.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was when I kind of realized this is the route I want to go down. And then I listened. My brother told me about a book, so I'd already made my decision. I hadn't branded myself sober because
hmm
people were asking, "Are you ever going to drink again?" I didn't really have the answers, but in my head, I'm thinking, probably not.
Mm.
But my brother told me about a book called Alcohol Explained. I
hmm
don't know if you've come across it.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that really just helps, in layman's terms, really just helps sort of just explain why you have the blackouts, why the hair of the dog and all of that sort of stuff. And I just thought it was so interesting. I was like, that's it. That's
Yeah.
exactly it.
Yeah.
And so anyone who's talked about getting sober now, I always point them in that direction, because it was so simplified for me. And I'm sure there's loads of other literature out there and other books that it could be just as helpful. But I'd already made my decision. All that did was just confirm it. So yeah, that would be it really. There wasn't a catalyst moment. There wasn't that. I mean, the standout really, which I haven't really got onto too much, but obviously going on to my wife and stuff. This was prior to me going away, and this is whilst I was still at work.
hmm
One of the main reasons it took me a while to actually do anything about it was me and my wife, we were sleeping apart.
Mm.
Um, so basically, what was happening is I was snoring because basically I was so big. So my dad snores. He's also a bit bigger, but he's got sleep apnea. So
Right.
he's got a CPAP machine, etc. So and my wife and my stepmom were talking, and saying about, oh, Henry's snoring, and they were sort of relating with each other, if you know what I mean. And I was overhearing this in the distance. And I'm like, well, why don't you go and see if he's got, go and get some tests, see if he's got sleep apnea.
hmm
So anyway, I went to go see a specialist, paid privately because it was becoming a bit of an issue. Sat down and he just looked at me and went, "You haven't got sleep apnea, mate." He went, "You need to lose some weight. It's all
Mm.
here. It's all sat around your throat, And he was like, "Let me guess. You're gonna say, you've always snored, even when you were a bit fitter and all of that stuff." He went, "I guarantee you now, you lose some weight, your snoring's going to improve massively." He
Yeah.
went, "But I can also tell you, there's some mouth guards out there if you really wanted to go down that route." So anyway, I bought a mouth guard. Never
Yeah.
got out of the box. So basically, that was a very big wake up call. That was like, okay, in order to sort of save your marriage, and I didn't want to be sleeping apart from my wife, but she was going. It was sending a mental basically.
Yeah.
And again, I'm not saying she is mental. I was sending a mental because
I
of
know.
she was sleep deprived. So it took a few months, though. You don't just do it overnight. It took a few months for me to make that decision. Okay, my weight's becoming a problem. What
hmm
is and then I had to really sort of narrow it all down and see, my diet, my food, and then booze, and it just kept coming back to booze,
Yeah.
and that's it.
Well, it's that thing, isn't it? And that book, Alcohol Explained, I was trying to remember, but it's William Porter, isn't it?
That's
And
it, correct? Yeah.
it's a great book. It's got the kind of science of it, but it is, as you say, it's kind of in layman's terms, it kind of simplifies the science behind it. And it explains our kind of, our cravings, our need for it, as you say, the hair of the dog. But like when we're going out on a Friday, Saturday night, and then it gets to Sunday and we've got work on a Monday, and it's like, oh, I feel like absolute shit. And sometimes, don't get me wrong, I used to go and get the hair of the dog, and there'd be a bunch of us, and we'd go out for a Sunday roast, and then we'd maybe get on it, but on a lower level on the Sunday night. But if we didn't do that, and it was like, right, I'm just going to spend the day in bed. I'm gonna go and get a McDonald's, and I'm gonna bring it back to my pit, and I'm gonna watch a film, and it's that laziness that it
Yeah.
kind of imbides in you. It kind of brings you into this like almost like lethargic hermit. And it's like you're not enjoying life. You're not doing life. You're just literally going out and doing a thing that's like a night that you probably can't even remember if you were like me. And then you're spending the rest of the weekend like in your pit. And it's like, what's that? How is
What is
that
it?
life?
And you don't
You know?
recover from it. I don't think if you had a heavy Saturday, I don't think you're right until Wednesday, Thursday. But
No.
realistically, that's when you think you start feeling okay, but
Yeah.
your sleep is so off
Yeah.
that it's only till I've started monitoring my sleep now. I only wish I monitored it when I used to
Oh,
drink. I wouldn't even want to know the numbers, but it's again, no one's sort of telling you the importance of sleep. You just think,
yeah.
oh, you get your 7 hours, fine. You don't understand how, interrupted it is. And
If you're
so,
not getting any of the REMs and the deep, deep sleep, then it's just a waste. And when I was drinking, I really wasn't. I was waking up in cold sweats. I was tossing and turning. My ex-partner, when I lived in Hull, was just getting so fed up with it. And most of the times I'd be waking up at about 5 or 6 o'clock in the morning, this towards the end. And because she'd have to get up for work, so I would just be fitfully turning and tossing, and then I'd get up early and I'd just go down and I'd start drinking. Do you know what I mean? Just to kind of stave off the withdrawals at that point in the morning. I mean, this was laterally towards the end of my career in drinking, but it was that bad that it was just like, yeah, I'd go down. And then by the time they got up, I'd kind of be back to kind of normal level self. So they wouldn't
yeah.
really know what was kind of happening. Sometimes I'd gone to the 24-hour garage in my dressing gown to get some vodka so that by the time they got up, they could see me in a fine state and then they could go off to work and school with kids. And then I would get on it during the day. And that's not a place that I ever want to go back to be. So we were out, we weren't actually in Hull, we were in a little place called, is it Willerby?
A little
Um,
bit, yeah, yeah. I've lived there for a brief
yeah.
period.
So we had the Aldi, which I miss an Aldi for
I
literally
lived
money.
opposite there.
Oh
I was
wow.
I
Right.
was the apartment Saint George's. I don't know.
Yeah, 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 yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
so I was literally there.
Well, I was literally round the corner in Victoria Road. So the old
Yeah,
the old kind of townhouses there, yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Wow. So I was there, what, 2018 to 2020? So just before lockdown, I was
Wow.
there. Yeah, so not long ago. So we probably bumped into each other round the corner. So
Probably, yeah.
my holy trinity, as I called it, the 24-hour garage, the Waitrose, and then the Spar around the corner. Those were the three shops that I would kind of space out going to for my booze.
Yeah.
So
Funny
yeah,
enough, because my apartment was there, my brother, he lived in those white houses that looked onto Aldi. He
yeah,
lived in one of those, the newer ones. And we would very often frequently go to that 24-hour garage because
yeah,
it was obviously the only place. And that, arguably, I would say, still drunk.
yeah.
Obviously, still drunk. And then some people would drive just because it was quicker.
It was
Oh, we need
quicker. It
some
was
cigs.
easier.
We need some cigs. We need this. Let's go.
Yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
but again, at the time, you're like, oh, you're willing to do that. You're amazing. Like again,
Yeah, you're the
like,
legend. You're the
yeah,
legend. That was it. I mean, this is nothing I'm proud of, obviously, but back in the day when I was a student in Leeds and my friend was working, and we'd be like, if we'd run out of booze, we'd need to go to get to the shop, and it was only like 10 or 15 minutes down the road. And I know that's not acceptable, but in my head, I would say, right, I'll drive because I'm a student. I don't need a license. If we get caught, you know what I mean? And that was my reasoning behind it. It was like, he's got a job. He needs his car for work on Monday. I'm getting the bus. I didn't have a car at that point anyway. So I was like, well, I don't need a license. And it's like, I'd already lost my license when I was in my 20s. And this was in like my mid 30s. And I just thought, what? Like looking back, how was that reasoning? But he was like, yeah, fine, whatever, you drive. Do
but
you know what I
it's
mean?
so sad though, isn't it? Where someone's willing to go, yeah, sound that's a really good
Yeah.
reason. Like, yeah,
Yeah.
you
He's
definitely
he's
take
not
one.
saying he's not saying no, like let's not do that. Because if we're talking about possibly losing our license, that's not the thing we should have been thinking about.
It's
It's
about running
knocking
over a
someone
kid.
over. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. You know what I mean? I mean, it was like 3, 4, 5 in the morning, but still, that's not the point. Um, Hen, tell us a little bit about your kind of your new business, your new venture, and what you're doing with that.
So again, having left the property industry.
Hmm.
I kind of fell back into it a little bit, which I still am. I'm still doing a bit of property investment,
Yeah, yeah,
again as a side hustle. But I was going to go all in with that, and I was going to do property sourcing. I was going to do all sorts. And then over Christmas, I had a bit of a rethink. I was like, I really don't want to fall back into this.
mm,
It was just too much of my old life that I've kind of left behind. So I was already helping people like to go sober, like,
hmm,
unknowingly in some cases. I was just sharing my story, and people would message me saying, "Oh, you really inspired me. I'm 60 days, I'm 100 days, or whatever." And
yeah,
what that gave me and how good that made me feel, I was like, I want more of this.
hmm,
However, I also need to make a living. So
mm,
it was like, how can I combine the two? So I did some coaching
hmm,
to become like a life coach, and I'm still learning. It's still early days, and I want to sort of fine tune my offerings.
hmm,
But I'm wanting to help people, basically be accountability for anyone who's sober curious, who's thinking about
yeah,
taking a break from alcohol. But it's try and take all the fluff away from it, really,
mm,
because rather than go into the stats, a bit like I was saying about that book, if you can do it in layman's terms and be that support that I didn't necessarily have, that's kind of what I'm relying on. I want to be that accountability for someone. I want to check in with them, give
mm,
them that pat on the back if it has been a 50 days or 20 days, and just say, keep going. How are you doing? How are you feeling? Whatever. And just because there's loads of people out there, there's nutritionists, there's personal trainers, there's all sorts. When you're talking about wellness as a whole,
hmm,
it's such a broad, spectrum, really. So I'm just trying to figure out where I can fit into that. And there's a lot of people doing it, and it's a very competitive market.
yeah,
However, you only notice a lot of people doing it because you're in it.
yeah, yeah,
Whereas
yeah, yeah,
locally, people don't know about you, or they don't know about the next sober coach or anything. They know about me because I'm making myself known in
yeah,
Hull and surrounding areas as the sober guy.
yeah,
And it's working really well because I'm running sober events now. I'm also doing features of local places. It started during Dry Jan. I called it the Alcohol Free
nice.
series. So a little play on Hull and
Yeah,
alcohol.
yeah,
You see
yeah.
what I did
That's
there?
good,
Yeah?
man. I
And
like it. Yeah, yeah.
so
You wouldn't have thought of
basically,
that when you were drinking.
right? So I'm promoting places, independent places, again because I think they need it as much as possible in this current climate.
Hmm.
So I'm just promoting the fact that you can still go out and have a good time,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
people are really buying into it. And so I want, if someone's thinking about cutting the booze, I want to be the first person someone thinks of in this area. If
Yeah.
they're struggling or anything, they can get in touch, and it is opening up opportunities for me. It's got me in front of you, etc. So
Hmm,
it's
hmm.
really just putting myself out there in the hope that I can be that beacon of hope for someone. If they just stumble across me and sharing my story about my weight loss, are you in a bit of a rut? Are you stuck, or do you feel like you're going down the path you're not supposed to? Then get in touch because I'm the same.
Yeah, yeah. You've
So
been there and you've got that lived experience. To say, I've started work as a peer mentor for a local charity over here, Motivate. And, I qualified in November and we've just started doing these kind of group meetings as well. And it's early days, but it's great for me. I've got my full-time job as well, but I love keeping my kind of hand in that oven, as it were. So it's kind of it, it, having the kind of the learned experience to speak to people that are wanting to get sober or try a new way of life. They relate to us more because we've been there. Do you know what I mean? We're not just
yeah,
reading from a book. And there are a lot of, life coaches, sober coaches out there. And as you say, it is a competitive market. But there are a lot of ones that are just like, they've read one book and they're suddenly like, an expert. And I know for a fact that a lot of them, ones that I've seen, they've probably never really had a major drinking problem. Do you know what I mean? So there is that kind of to watch on as well. So to have you kind of being genuine and being able to share your experience, and not just with the alcohol, with as you say, with your weight as well, people can relate to that. And I think it's great what you're doing. So what is it? It's Zen Hen.
so my name on Instagram's Zen Hen,
Yeah.
and again I think I'm not sure if we were recording, but obviously that name was given to me from my friends when I went to Thailand.
Oh yeah, 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 yeah.
So basically, it was more of a piss take more than anything. So I thought
But
I'm
it
going to
works.
own that. And you know what? It's people. It kind of I did it at first. I just created my Instagram page just for motivation, just to look at
Uh-huh.
other motivational pages when I was going through my weight loss journey and stuff. And then I changed my name. I think I changed it to HB Home Buyers when I was going down that route. And
Uh-huh.
everyone was like, "What happened to Zen Hen? Like, bring Zen Hen back!" Like all my family and people were saying it. I was like, "Oh!" And then I would get people stopping me, going, "Hey, Zen Hen!" I'm like,
Yeah,
"Okay, this is kind of growing legs a little bit."
yeah.
So when it came to my name, my business name, I wanted like rather than just talk about sobriety, I wanted it to sort of be that sort of endurance, that sort of wellness, that sort of fight. And so I thought I'd play on that. So I've just called it Zen Endurance. And
Right. Cool.
so
Cool.
it's not basically, it's not, I don't want to just be harping on about sobriety. It's trying to encapsulate everything,
Yeah.
with
Yeah.
regards to, again, wellness, just being the best performer you can, really, with
Hmm.
regards to just being the best version. And I think booze obviously does play a part, but I think purpose as well. And just if you are, again, in a rut and you just need someone to just sort of pull you out of that, that's what I'm
Yeah.
hoping to do.
And I think you're totally right because my life and my wellness has changed so dramatically since just giving up the booze, and I think that's where it starts. If people are having a problem with that and they give that up, then it's once they've mastered that, it's then looking for the other things that they can kind of change and
Mm.
adapt and tweak in their life. So I think someone like yourself, who's obviously doing kind of a bit of an all rounder on that,
Mm.
is going to be fantastic as well. So, do you think alcohol still has a place in our society?
Personally, no. When people go, oh, well, it's all in moderation, you can do this, you can do that. I'm like, why are you voluntarily poisoning your body? If you know it's poison, why are you still having it?
Yeah.
I just, uh, you know, so for me, I've kind of restricted myself twofold, really. I've gone completely sober and I also gone vegan in the same amount of time. So you can imagine
Mm.
that restriction side of it. Like, again, not, I look at it as you could ask me the same question about meat or dairy, etc.
Yeah.
It's however, I can't control that. All
Yeah.
I can do is focus on what I want to focus on and try and help people. But if you were to ask me straight up, do I think it? No, I don't think. I think you can have a good enough time without it. Yes, I think what people miss is the chaos.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I think, if you can try and surround yourself by the right people where you don't need that chaos and you can just have wholesome, good, nice times,
Mm-hmm.
then I think that should be enough. You don't
Yeah.
need to get stupid. You don't need to black out. You don't need to not remember how you got home or anything. Or, the arguments, the fights, just all of that sort of stuff. I
Yeah.
genuinely think there's too much money in it. There's too much money in it for it to, I walked through Sainsbury's during Christmas. There was literally walls of beers, and then there was a pyramid of Baileys, just
Mm.
this huge thing of Baileys, and I just thought this is ridiculous.
Yeah. And
So,
that's not just for show. That stuff will have sold. You
oh,
know,
definitely, yeah,
they've bought it in the shop because they know what their projected figures are and they know that that stuff's going to go. So if you're seeing this like behemoth of a pyramid or crates and crates and crates of Stella and all that, it'll all go and it'll all get drank. And that's the thing. It's absolutely insane. But I hear what you're saying, Hen. It's like the fact that there's too much money in it and there's not enough warnings about what it's capable of doing. Do you know what I mean? Health
yeah,
wise, the 7 types of cancer that it can cause. I think when more people start to get told and understand the dangers that come with it, it'll go like smoking. And I think people will start to be a bit more health
I think
conscious on it.
branding and
Yeah.
all of that. I would like to think in the next 10 years it
Yeah.
will be like smoking, where they can't necessarily openly brand it, on adverts or anything, but
Yeah.
we can only hope.
Can only
But
hope. At the moment, the government are making too much money from it, which they did with smoking. But I think their hands were tied with smoking eventually in the late '80s, early '90s, when they were like, "Right, we're not allowed to advertise it anymore. We're not allowed to do this," and they slowly, slowly cut it down. Whereas at the moment, alcohol still regulates itself, so they've got the government are just like, do what you want, guys, and they are, so they will do that for. But I think you're right. I think 5 to 10 years is kind of where it's kind of we're gonna see, and I think the younger people coming through, like yourself and the generation below you and below that, they're gonna start. They're more health conscious, and once they start doing their own research, because they're always online, they will see that this stuff isn't good for you, and they'll be like,
Well, if you
"Why
keep
would I?"
spinning your word, and then obviously vice versa as well. If
Yeah,
there's more people like us,
yeah.
then people are going to get hold of that information, aren't they?
Oh, absolutely. They can't hide it anymore. Like back when we were drinking, or in the 90s and the noughties, there wasn't really the same level of information online. And you didn't just think, right, I don't know what that is. I'm going to Google it. Do you know what I mean? But now it's like, I'll just Google it. I'll Google it. I'll Google
Yeah,
it.
yeah,
It's
Siri.
constant. Yeah, Siri, that's it. Hope my Siri doesn't
Oh,
start.
yeah, my Siri's just
Yeah,
got.
years ago now. So, one last kind of, what would you want to say to the listeners, Hen, if people are like kind of going to trying to get, if they're sober curious, or if they're in the first kind of couple of days or weeks of sobriety?
I would just say, don't let your previous experiences stop you from giving it a try. You may have done dry January, you may have done something else, but I think with a lot of those things, they're great. However, you're so focused on it ending, you never think about the journey in between. So I think if you can just take it one day at a time,
Mm,
then I think it would be a lot easier to maintain. But if you're just waiting for that 30th or 31st day for you to have another drink, it kind of feels more like punishment more than anything else. So I
perfect.
think, yeah, just don't let previous times that you stopped put you off, because there's so much help out there. There's so many good alcohol-free alternatives. So
Yeah.
I just think if you're thinking about it, the fact that you're thinking about it kind of shows you want to do something about it.
So yeah, just keep persevering at it. If I'd stopped giving up on my first fail, then I wouldn't be here. So
Well, that's
that's
it,
that's the
and I
point.
think you do it when it's right. You like I did. I must have done dry Jan, sober October. I must have done that 4 or 5 times,
Yeah.
but I never ever learned from it
No,
because I
no.
wasn't ready. I
Because
was
you,
just
but yeah, because
doing.
as you say, you were just waiting to get that under your belt and get to November or February and start drinking again.
Yeah,
Yeah,
the clock strikes 12. I would have a pint ready to
yeah,
go.
yeah, yeah,
So
yeah.
it's like,
That's it.
what for?
Yeah.
So yeah, I would just say if you're thinking about it, there's clearly something there.
Mm,
Lean into it, look into it, and there's plenty of information out there. And people like ourselves are always willing to help as well.
perfect. Thanks, Hen. Absolutely. What a pleasure to have you on, mate. Really good chat. And as I say, I'll put all your details in the show notes, and people can find you, on Instagram, and they can find your website on there as well. So yeah, yeah, perfect. Well, thanks very much, man, and
All right,
we'll chat again soon.
all right. Cheers, buddy. See you
Cheers,
soon.
man. Take it easy. Henry Zen, Henzen. Yeah, really, really great conversation. Just a couple of old pissheads chatting away, sharing their horror stories and how they got sober. Yeah, Henry's done an amazing job, and just listening to some of the kind of aspects of his life. He just sounds like he's in a much, much happier and better place. And, like what he's doing with Zendurance, his kind of well-being company, coaching, it's not just about giving up the alcohol. It's a kind of, full 360 kind of look at well-being and fitness and health. And yeah, so you can check Henry out at Zen_hen on Instagram. He's also an ambassador for Number One Fitness Retreats, which you can find on his link. And his company is Zendurance. But he also has, a little kind of free events organisation called Alco Hull Free. So if you're in the Hull area and you want to go to, a sober event, then, hit him up, find the links on his Instagram page. So, yeah, no, I love these conversations. As I say, it's episode 12. And, I hope people are getting, something from them. Even if it's just one person getting them from them, then, that's amazing, because that's what it's all for. As I said at the beginning, even if you haven't got any issues with alcohol at all, it's just worth listening to these to kind of try and understand the dangers that are, kind of impacted with alcohol consumption. We didn't, back in the day, they didn't really know the full dangers of cigarettes, and it took a long time for that to kind of come through and filter through into the masses. Even when they're putting horrible pictures on packets, people were still smoking. I know people are still smoking now, but it is getting less and less and less. So, let's kind of try and hit home just how bad alcohol can be for you. If you're just having one glass every now and then, 2 glasses every now and then, that's fine. But if you are drinking quite consistently, at the weekend, or having that glass of wine in the evening or 2 evenings of the week, it is a lot, and you're probably over the kind of the health recommendations. So just have a little look into it, have a look at the research yourself, and make your own choice. Follow, like, subscribe, hit me up with a little comment on the platforms. I love that people are commenting on my Instagram as well, and I love that. But please just try and put a comment on the platform that you're listening to the podcast on. And for now, stay safe, stay supportive, and stay sober. I've said that wrong, but, doesn't matter. This is raw, this is real. This is After Hours with Jimmy Thistle. Bye, guys.